We're often told that there's like this specific playbook we have to follow and follow a script if we want to be successful. Go to school, get good grades, go to college. Well, this show is going to tell you the opposite. We know that following scripts, it just turns you into a follower. Out of Line is about leaders who had the guts to ignore that manual and just go for it. Today's guest, Thomas Sephakis, is a serial entrepreneur with over 32 years of experience in a variety of industries. He's been in the restaurant industry, he's been an actor, a screenwriter, an author, a serial entrepreneur, and of course, our main stage of staffing industry entrepreneur, and the one near and dear to his heart, intelligent staffing. Man, Tom's journey is really proof that you don't have to follow the straight and narrow to be successful. If we put his line on a piece of paper, I think it would just be a bunch of squiggles. So here we have Tom Sephakis. He has a ton of fun and a lot of things to learn from him today. Let's get into it. Do you know Dave Donald?
Yes.
So
People share.
Yeah, that's where I worked. So
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I started in the Pottstown office with Dave.
Oh, I developed my other company, SIC, Staffing Industry Consultants, developed programs for us when they were trying to do MSPs. Him and who was his partner's name?
Ryan Clark.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Boy, that was, oh my God, 12, 15 years ago, maybe?
Wow.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
I knew we had a bunch of mutual connections, so I was going through them like, guys have to know each other. So I
Go meet the medical drive there, and he'd walk around with his baseball, smacking his baseball bat with it,
and Brian's a hockey guy, so he always had a hockey stick. Those two were a lot of fun. So I started there in 2008 when they were just a few years old. Of course, like any of us, we don't want to be in staffing, but we get in it and we love it and we never leave, right? So
never leave, stuck in it forever.
Totally. I had no plans because I'd worked for Wawa for 10 years and I was working for their corporate, and that's how I got into recruiting. But I was so bored. It was an amazing company. I probably would have been a gazillionaire retiring in 30 years, because they had stock and everything. But I was so bored. So that's how I landed at PeopleShare. I was looking and I was interviewed by a couple staffing companies that were just terrible. I was very turned off, and I thought the whole industry was unethical and cutthroat. And
it is, and there's a lot of them out there that are just, they just piggyback off of each other.
Yeah.
Some of them no business being in this industry. The worst part is it gives companies like ours or PeopleShare or Judge Group, I know Marty and all them, and it just gives you bad names. It's like, oh, you guys are just, body shops. And that's not the case, so, but it's changed.
It has, thank goodness. I mean, I remember sitting in a job shadow, and this was one of my first experiences with a staffing company, and I'm sitting behind the desk with this girl. She was interviewing for a call center position. She had tattoos from like here down, right?
Yeah.
I didn't think anything of it. She was interviewing for a call center position. There's really no rules there for appearance. I mean, all my call center people were allowed to wear pajamas. They didn't care.
Yeah.
Within reason. But then we're sitting there and I could see her notes, the recruiter's notes, and she is typing up, would never place her anywhere, tattoos everywhere, she looks trashy. These are the notes she's writing about this girl. And at the same breath, she's telling her, I'm going to get your information over. We'll let you know. I have a really good feeling about this. I was mortified. And I was like in my early 20s at this point. And I was like, how could you talk to somebody like that and be fine with just lying to their face?
Lead them on. And a lot of them do. And there's just so many companies out there that will get you on the phone and they just go back and forth. And, oh, we're going to do this, this, and this. And then they're dismissive. And you wonder why candidates, the candidate market, and it has changed tremendously probably since you've been in it. I've been in it 34 years. At this point, and I started out in the franchise side. I worked for Western Staffing, which used to be just like Kelly. Okay, we had Kelly Girl and you had Western Girl.
Pittsburgh?
That was in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Western Staffing was out of Menlo Park, California. At about 4.7 billion. I don't know if you remember Western Medical Schools.
That sounds so familiar. Yeah.
care, and they actually owned some of these schools nationwide. It was TV commercials and everything, and eventually they changed their name to Western Staffing because you couldn't say Western Girl anymore. You couldn't say Girl. And so they changed it all over there to be proper. And then they became West Staff and just imploded. And then the company
Mm,
sold off. I was a franchisee at the time, and we just sold back to the new company at that point.
okay.
And that's how I ended up in Philadelphia. I came from Pittsburgh, so
Okay. How do you like the two cities in comparison? Obviously, you've stayed in
big
Philadelphia, so.
big difference. Well, I had family here and stuff, and
Mm,
raised my kids here. I was a single dad for a while. I was divorced and became a single dad, and just never left. It was
mm,
good. Built another company here. Built a tech company. Built another staffing service that did very well. Had the consulting business, so we consulted to staffing firms like People Share, everybody else, and Judge Group, and all those guys,
yeah,
and was just very good here. You compete in Pittsburgh, so I wanted to do it again because once you get that taste for staffing, and you
yeah,
do well, you want to stay in it.
yeah.
And I've been in other businesses and stuff, and obviously, if the job board company, tech company, did medical and healthcare supplies and stuff. Involved in the staffing company here, got an RPO company now, a cleaning service. We do residential and commercial cleaning, SB, out of Pottstown. We started that last year, and we've grown it to 60 some plus clients already in a year. So we've done very well with that. Intelligent staffing was kind of the little baby that I had here, and was involved in another company, In-Depth Solutions and Consulting, and we did mostly contractors, and all we did was pharmaceutical business. That's pharmaceutical companies, and we did well. I mean,
Mm,
we were about $60 million company, but as big as when I first met the guys at People Share, as big as they were, when you were probably working there. They're bigger now, but we got to that level too, and you kind of hit that wall
yeah.
as an entrepreneur. What are you going to do next or whatever? And one of the big national companies came along and bought us out. They're like, we want the contracts. We're going to buy you. And we're like, okay. But kept intelligence staffing. I closed it up for a year because I had a non-compete. I was an
Right.
owner. Can't be in the same industry. Can't steal our clients, whatever. And then reopened. And
Wow.
right now, general practice, we do everything. We're from light LI all the way up to finance and accounting, healthcare, EDU staffing. We do payroll services. We have employer of record services for benefits. We work in numerous countries. We have licensing through 52 countries. We work in probably about 13,
Wow.
14.
That's amazing.
So we got a small footprint
Yeah.
at the company. We're a small company. We're in that, $5 to $12 million a year range, on and off, depending on the great year or not. We've had some bad years as well, like everybody else with
Right.
COVID and everything.
Yeah.
But, we've stayed small in that sense, because it's like when you're running a 60, $70 million company, you're like, oh my goodness, there's
Yeah.
always issues, and there's enough problems and issues in staffing to begin with. So
Oh my gosh. I know.
create,
I know. And the higher you go, the more, like you said, the more successful you get, the
yeah,
worse it gets, and the more frequent it is too.
yes, yeah,
I
yeah,
really, I ended up as a COO for David Ryan, and they
yeah,
just sold. Well, they sold twice. They sold in 2023 to a strategic, but it was even more in depth into the political, corporate. Have to do everything that the way the book says. It doesn't seem to me like that's how you've run your
yeah.
businesses.
And I've been involved in a lot. I mean, I worked in some of the big companies, Western Staffing, West Staff. They sold to Select. If you remember,
Mm-hmm.
Dave Sorensen, his wife, that was Select Staffing. So that's when we got out as franchisees because they wanted to be corporate. So they bought back a lot of the franchisees and so forth. And I did have a business partner. Then, unfortunately, she passed away. She had cancer.
Oh my gosh.
She was kind of my mentor in
Mm.
Pittsburgh. I stole her from another company because she knew everybody,
Right.
and
Yeah.
well, we were there for we worked together for about a year, and we had the opportunity. The owner, um, Robert Stover, came to us and said, "Yeah, I'm looking at selling off some franchises. Would you like to buy?" I got a call one day, and I didn't even know who he was. I knew the name. You know how it registers. You know
Yes.
the name. I should know who this guy is. I'm like,
Right.
oh my goodness. And he's like, "Wow, I'm in town. I'm in Pittsburgh. I'm staying by the airport at the Marriott. How can I pick you up for a breakfast tomorrow at the office?" And I'm like, yeah, sure." And then when I got off the phone, I'm like, "Oh my God, that's the owner." And the guy's like, multi-billionaire,
Right.
whatever. At that time, he was like 82 years old, and he was
My gosh.
doing business. Okay.
Wow.
And he said, "I'd like to, talk to you about, would you like be interested, be in this business?" And the franchises. You have Pittsburgh, we have 3 offices, Cleveland has like 2, and, we can give you this territory. So I was trying to figure out how I was gonna finance this and do all this, and when we did it, that's why I took a partner. But he actually went to Westminster, College, university, now Westminster, with my
Oh,
great uncle, in the '50s, and he's
wow.
like, "I know,"
Wow.
and I'm like, "Okay," so I got a better deal franchising, so that was good. And
Good.
then the hits you, that's when the bug, and that's, I don't know if you remember the days, probably saying my age here, but we used to, fax over resumes. You
Yes.
did computers in the
Was
office, you had
there.
doc matrix printers, and all the recruiters had card catalogs of their candidates.
Yep.
It would go through, and that's how you collected the business card. Go out on a deal, and we would drop people in, downtown Pittsburgh, and you're going to cover this building, and Tiffany, you're going to do this one, Tom, you're going to do this one, and you'd come back with all the cards and send out
Yeah.
mail. That's how you did it. Shoebox. It was a shoebox business back then.
Yeah.
West F, like I said, they were about a 4.7, $4.8 billion company when they sold off and got out of the business. Oh, but the times have changed. With
Mhm.
COVID, 2020 was
Yep.
a huge change in the landscape. I'm still here. We're still kicking. We went through
Right.
some internal things. We had some people here that just, they weren't doing the job they should have been doing. Uh,
Mm.
Come on, they were in, key leadership roles, and sometimes you have to change leadership.
Yeah.
And, you had people that said, "Oh, I did this, this, and this." And then you get the feedback and you're like, well, you're not that, I
Right.
had one here that was like, wow, I was, one of the co-founders and whatever. I'm like, dude, you were like in middle school. So they would fluff their resume or
Yeah.
fluff LinkedIn to make themselves better. And so we had to part ways with different people. We went through a lot of changes after 2020,
Mhm.
going into 2023, you know, and we've seen it change. I was through 9/11. You go through the stock market, 2008, and,
Mhm.
and 2014 market crash and everything. Staffing can be a very detrimental and very trying business.
Yeah.
People are in and out of, but the thing is, like you said, people, if you know somebody, you've been doing this long enough, you all know each other. I know still people are running the West Coast, or I was on a cruise in Europe years ago, 10 years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, so-and-so, it's Deb Sauter from another firm that she owned in California. I'm like, I remember when you worked at West Staff,
Yeah, it's such
and
a
you just
small
want
world.
people. It's just, the landscape has changed. And one thing that we always talk about is candidates have changed. The
Drastically.
mentality has changed. I always tell this story. I don't want to bore you, but I tell a story. I
No,
had
let's hear
one
it.
that got a great job offer. He had worked at, we won't say, pharmaceutical company, starts with a C, retail pharmacy, had been there for years and was downsized because they're closing all kinds of retail
Mm.
locations, as every one of them are now, because everything's online. But he got a job as a new pharmacist, lead pharmacist. We got him $15,000 more a year. Nice pay raise.
Wow. Jeez,
The
that's
company
unheard
is
of.
the company was family owned, so very Christian based. So they were always closed Sundays. They only operated Monday through Saturday. So you always had
Wow.
Sunday off. And another day, got him 4 weeks vacation. He did the background, did the drug test. Oh, he's so thankful. And everything. Friday before he starts on a Monday. You know how that goes. And Friday he calls up and says, I really can't take this job unless I got to work remote 3 days a week.
Come on. For
The
a
first question,
pharmacist?
first question out of your mind is, are you going to fill prescriptions in your basement?
Yeah,
It's
okay,
just,
creep.
it's just the mentality, and we've seen that
Right.
so much in the last couple years. That
That's the most extreme one I've heard, Tom. That's
crazy. It's
insane.
just crazy. And you look at these people like, oh my God, because we're very well, in the niche marketplace that we play in against the bigger firms, and we partner and do splits and help bigger companies do recruiting because we can raise our bandwidth very quickly with the RPO teams, and so we can give them broad based recruitment where we can do splits on the deals. And you see these companies doing this, and you see the same complaint. There are jobs out there. You probably saw the job numbers. Jobs are out there. Manufacturing has become huge this year.
Yeah.
The end of last year, it's all coming back to the
Mhm.
States, and that's a good thing. There's plenty of jobs out there. We're doing it. Problem is, the mentality of candidates have changed. A lot of them still think it's 2020. They want to work remote, or you get people like this that are like, yeah, I want to be a pharmacist, but I want to do it from home. You can't. Yeah, you're going to be a chef in your restaurant, but you're going to cook at home. And,
Right.
um, so it's a different landscape. And
Yeah.
that is the biggest complaint, I think. And I don't know if you see this in the industry and you watch it. But in staffing, it's the candidate side has become so hard. It really has.
It has. I saw it change into such an emotional
Mm,
market on the candidate side. Like everything is
yeah.
about their feelings, you know? And that was like, I want to feel good. I want to feel better. I want to feel loved at my job. I want flexibility. Okay, well,
I
you got to
remember.
earn that though.
Well, you gotta earn it, and it was in the days, and sometimes you wish you say, "Oh, sometimes things were better in the past," and whatever. I remember going into meetings where people would get screamed at,
Yeah.
okay? And, oh my god, they'd cry. They'd cry their way
Yeah.
home, go in
Can
the
you
car,
imagine now?
and then they still come back tomorrow because they had a
Yeah,
job.
they had to. Yeah.
Today, it's they need and I just they need their little space, and you're in my personal space, and I gotta do this, and I need time off, and
Yeah.
you know, it's like, "Can I work remote?" This is a hands-on job. It's like, here's you wanna be in manufacturing, you gotta make a tool and dies, and you're gonna do this.
Yeah.
All the work from home. No, you can't. And it's just kind of corrupted the legacy of candidates, the work ethic, the
Yeah.
cultural expectations, because as a company, your hands are tied. And that's why hiring companies and companies that go out there and need personnel, they use staffing service. There's a need for staffing. It's a great industry to be in. It's one of the top 10 businesses to be in globally. And there's always a need for it, and there's always a need for hiring. There's always a need for payroll. Everybody payrolls,
Right.
unless you're avoiding your taxes, but everybody payroll
Right.
at that point. So there's a need for it, and it's great to be in. And it's one of the businesses that I've enjoyed the most. I mean, I've been in, manufacturing. I've been in the tech segment, been in the restaurant business.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of a nightclub and a tiki bar and all
Wow.
those things. And a full service restaurant and catering very well for 12, 15 years, but it burns you out.
Mhm.
And I always use the example because, I coach people on getting into business, and my one consulting firm helps startups, mostly in staffing. That's where I got connected with PeopleShare. They were looking for help and assistance on what they're going to do.
Yeah.
They hit that wall. And people, when you do coaching, they hit a wall. They're an
Right.
entrepreneur. You can make $100 million and you hit a wall and you don't know where to go from there. So you bring somebody in, business coach or things that we did in the industry. And with restaurants, it was very funny because everybody that I meet, everybody wants to own a restaurant until you own a restaurant.
Until you own a restaurant, yes. It's not glamorous.
Not glamorous. It's not what you think. And there's always problems. There's always there's more turnover in that business than
Oh,
anything,
yeah.
you know, and the same thing. And you see it, you were talking about people and appearance. And they hire, I hate to say it, they do hire anybody now, regardless of
Mhm.
appearance. And you're like, "Oh my god, I wouldn't let this person serve me food." I hope
Yeah.
they wash their
There's
hands, and
should
because
still
they
be
can't find ah,
standards. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, there should still be standards in certain
absolutely,
industries, you know?
absolutely. But I enjoy that, and I've been, serial entrepreneur for years. I've been in
Yeah.
staffing 34 years, and I've done a lot of things, and I, invested in other companies and done things. Shark Tank, it's like the small scale.
Right.
Not those billionaires, but, the small scale investing in companies and seeing a need. I'm working with a company in Spain right now that I see the opportunity with them to come to the US market. I'm working with another company out
Wow.
of the Philippines, looking at options to bring into the US and grow those things. And it just, I try when we sold the one consulting firm to the large national company, and I might as well say it, Kelly Service bought us.
Mm,
And we had a great
that's
exit
great.
deal there. And I tried to retire
Okay.
back when I was still married at that time, and I tried to retire, and you get bored. It was like, I just want to create another business. And I think that's what got into the creative stuff. And I think, my
Okay.
background with like movies and television
Yeah.
and writing.
Well, I was wondering where that all fell. Yeah.
And that's what got kind of interested in that. And I met somebody out here that had a production company. He worked for CBS out here, and then he had a private channel. There's a lot of private channels, and he was a member of the Writers Guild and Producers Guild of America. I used to be a card carrying for SAG. I don't believe, again, I'm independent because I don't believe in all their ethics, and because it's crazy business out there. But we like to do like short films and stuff. So we got together and we started writing. When
Yeah.
I went to college, I got into business administration in college. I went to University of Pittsburgh, love them. And, when I went to college, I went to be a writer, and I wanted to be a screenwriter. And I did. I did a lot of screenplays. I optioned a few to some studios.
Wow.
Never got made. You still get the option fee. I don't care if you pay me
Yeah,
and you
that's
pay.
amazing.
And that was a good thing in college because it helped put me through college. I was making money
Right.
and doing that. And, and I financed my college in that sense. I had some help from some family member, my grandmother and stuff. But you had to do a lot on your own. And I worked 3 jobs and I did that. And got into acting in college and improv, love to do improv. And all those things. And that's why I think today people are like, oh my God, he likes to sing. He likes to do karaoke. And he was in a band years ago, but I still go out and hit it up karaoke and they put me on the spot. And I'm like, oh my God. But that was the whole thing with the acting bug. And it's like, and it hits you,
Yeah.
it bites you. It was cool because I was never the person, and I've spoken in front of, I've done keynote lectures and stuff, and I don't know, thousands, 2,000 people. Okay.
Mm.
Training sessions and things. But I tell you what, I give all the credit in the world to people that do stage, okay,
Ooh.
stage act, because I can't do
Yeah,
that.
that's tough.
If I flub a line, I can look off, say, "Oh, cut," and line, and you can
Right.
you can just from there. It's so easy having a camera to do that because just like
Yes.
anything, you can edit it and go through. Stage, you can't. So I was never,
Did
for
you ever though? Did you ever try it? Or just it wasn't
I tried it and I
yeah.
just, just memory and stuff. Look, I have good short-term memory, but it doesn't hold up. Can't recite Macbeth. To go out
I
there and
know, yeah.
to be in front of
Wow.
people, sing and perform, play drums and stuff like that, great. To do, a stage play, Othello or, whatever, Death of a Sailor, no way.
You're right.
To film a movie and do it, I could do that, and I love doing that. So we got into a lot of things, and been in some small TV parts, background and whatever, nothing major. But we started doing some films. We had a good track record for about 3, 4 years. Actually, last year we had a short film called End of Time and Romance.
So what I
Uh,
was just pulling up on, it was on the first one that pops up on IMDb. Sorry, and there's a lady, and she looks all terrified. Yeah.
I thought, listen, we did that one, wrote it, co-produced it, and so I thought it was really corny. Special effects were okay, blasé, but it's a short film. And you can enter it and you put all these contests. We actually won the Gold Key Award for the London Sci-Fi Film Festival for that. I
Awesome.
want and listen, and I look at that film, I'm like, oh, because any actor performer does. They look at it and go, oh my God, I did that.
Right.
So I did this offset, corny kind of Doctor Who character. It was, not Doctor Who, but that was like I based it on. And I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I got through the film and I saw the film. I'm like, this is horrible. And it wins that award. It won me best actor for the sci-fi for that. And I'm like, you're kidding. I'm like, against who?
Wow.
Like 300 and some films. That film is now, I forget how many years old. It showed at Cannes Film Festival last year in the short
Really?
category. And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I
That's
could see it was like,
amazing.
"You're kidding me." So we got
So
invited to
much
go there.
fun.
Well, of course, you gotta pay for it yourself. We didn't go, obviously, but we did
Right.
that, and we had a horror film, a couple other things that done up. We won the, Bela Lugosi Horror Film Festival, which is
Wow.
the largest, most noteworthy film festival for horror in Europe, and, because they do it in Transylvania, and it's the Bela Lugosi 'cause
Yeah, yeah.
and it's their film festival, and I'm like, "Oh my," we won for that. The funny thing, I was in Pittsburgh a couple years back, 4 or 5 years ago, and I was in Southside Pittsburgh going out to eat, and they had Pittsburgh Film Festival, and I'm walking by, and I had, like, 3 or 4 people with me, and my son was with me too, and he's like, "Oh my God," he's all embarrassed. He's college age at that point, and I'm like, "What?" And he says, "Look, it's you on a film poster," and I'm like, "What?" They were actually show that film in Pittsburgh at the Pittsburgh
My
Festival
gosh, no
because
way.
they
That's
or
great.
the Romero thing, because if you're into zombie films, well, Night of the Living Dead, the
Yeah.
grandfather of zombie, George
Yeah.
Romero. Thing is, his ex-wife actually worked for me in the staffing business in Pittsburgh. So she would come in dressed in her furs and diamonds, and she all day because they did very well. She
Yeah.
divorced him, but she got into staffing sales. Everybody loved her. It's very, very, very attractive, very
Funny.
personable salesperson, and she did very well for us. But I'm like, oh my God. And of course, they're all standing there taking pictures of me, and people are walking by. I'm all embarrassed. And I'm like, and I get what these big
That's
people
great.
go.
I love
You think of what these big name actors go through, and it's like when people run up to them, "Can I have your autograph?" And you're like, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed." And that
yeah.
was, I'm like, this is like a film poster. Here I am. Here's my picture on it. Here I am standing there, and I'm like, hey, looking, pointing and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And it's kind of corny, but it's fun. It really is. It's
I'm
kind
so
of fun.
glad that you said that because it sounds so much fun and you worked for it. So, it's
Yeah.
great that you
Yeah.
got some reward from it.
Here's one that you will love, and
Yeah.
because we filmed up in Pennsburg, we filmed in Conshohocken, and we filmed in North Coventry. We did a horror film, and the horror film at the end of the night, we're filming. We got permits and stuff, and you're doing all this stuff, and we had the film crew, the makeup crew, and everything else. And at the end of the film, I had to, I'm covered in blood. It's a horror film.
Lovely.
You know, I played a monster. It was a human but transformed into a monster in the
Okay.
film, and I covered. And my female counterpart was also a monster, and
Okay.
we attacked a couple bystanders. So we're filming this at night. So we're there. We're on the back roads. 2 o'clock in the morning. We're done. All right, that's it. It's in the can. We're done. Cut. All right, wipe off. I'm covered in blood, my shirt, pants, and I'm like, okay. So I put a towel in my car, and I'm like, all right, I got to drive home, and when everybody else is done and stuff. Tiffany, I got pulled over to checkpoint, and I'm literally covered in like head to toe blood.
My
Uh,
gosh.
And the police were there, and the guy comes up to me. He's shining a flashlight on me. I'm in the car. I said, "Listen, put my hand. I said, listen, I didn't
Yeah.
kill anyone.
I
I
swear.
really didn't. We were on a film set. He's laughing, and he's like,
Oh my
hey, hey,
gosh.
look, hey, come here. Now all of a sudden I got like five cops around the car taking pictures of me. And nobody's gonna believe this. And I'm
Of
like, oh my
course.
God. So just stuff like that is really cool stuff
That's
that
great.
happens that you never really see. So, but
No,
that was
yeah.
I'm not a serial I didn't kill anybody.
That's what they all say.
Fake blood, yeah. Oh my God. And they call actually well, somebody did call back to the station, but obviously we had permits
Yeah.
because we
Okay.
were
Right.
so and they thought it was hilarious. So,
Wow.
so
So
interest
you actor, author, writer, leader, entrepreneur, speaker,
Mhm.
investor,
Yeah.
restaurant
I
owner,
have a lot on my
tiki
headstone.
bar, tiki bar,
Tiki bar tiki bar, yeah.
and not to mention all the different industries that you invest
All
in.
the industry I've written 13 books. I've had 5 published.
And
One sold over 60 some thousand copies. We did,
yeah,
I've done
tell
I
me
just
about
love
your.
to
I think yeah, no wonder you couldn't stay retired.
exactly.
That's not a shock. Tell me about your.
Yeah, well, I started out writing sci-fi because that's what I did for movies. I watched something that was years ago. I watched Steven Spielberg did an
Mhm.
interview about ET, and he's like, and this was when ET was out, and this was before I was young and I wanted to go to college, and I'm like, and he's like, oh my God, came up with this treatment. It's the short version of the draft. Came up with this treatment. It's 25 pages for the film for ET, and we sold it to I forget who it was, Amblin Entertainment, and so he produced it, and
Wow.
then the company. And I'm like, you know what? I could write 25 pages. Can't be that hard. I mean, Steven Spielberg, I could do that too.
Yeah.
And that's what got me interested in writing
Okay.
screenplays. It is a different format, but the point was when I started doing that, I wanted to always expand on the stories. So it
Hmm.
got to the point, so I started writing novels. I'm like, well, I got more to tell than just a screenplay. So I
Wow.
started novels. That's how I got into writing books. Interestingly enough, I did sci-fi, I did criminal thriller stuff, and did horror as well, genre there. And then, but my biggest selling was if you're from the area, the Sunnybrook Ballroom down there. I was one of the owners. I was one of the restaurants we had. So I was one of the owners there for
Ah,
12 years. And we did, got it declared as a historic landmark and renovated it and did all that stuff. And I wrote a book on that. And this one was nonfiction. Of course, the nonfiction was the biggest selling one. That was the
great.
60 some thousand copies.
Okay.
Did a history book on the ballroom and got it published by
Cool.
Arcade Publishing.
Okay.
Still out there, still selling. I was in Baltimore one time at the Inner Harbor at a Barnes and Noble, and my kids were there, and they're like, "Oh, look, Dad, we found your book." I'm like, "Oh my God." Um, for the Sunnybrook. And it's funny because I still have people. I was actually approached not too long ago by somebody that does as a senior center in Limerick, and they did a senior center. They're like, can you come in and talk about Sunnybrook? Because people would like to hear
Yeah.
about it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. That's fine. I don't charge you. I'm not going to charge a fee, just,
Right.
whatever. I'll come and talk for a half hour, 45, and they always end up being an hour long because everybody has a story and that's great. And, so that's what kind of got me into the writing was went from screenplay to a longer story
Yeah.
transition. And I also got into the point when I was in writing my books or writing screenplays, I'm like, you know what? I could, that could be me. I could act this and do this role, and that's what got me into the acting bug in college and doing, I love doing improv. Kind of remember the days, not Saturday Night Live, but, some of the different shows there that were more improv. And I just love rattle back and forth and do it. And I just love that because it was live. So,
That's why you're a good sales guy.
yeah, I try to. I
Don't
try
they
to
go
be
hand in hand?
hand in hand.
Sometimes, you gotta be a good actor.
It works. And what's really funny, Tiffany, what's really funny is like I go on, people will look you up on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Yeah, I look at your profile and whatever else. And then all of a sudden, just like you, it's like, well, I did a Google search. I saw the IMBD thing. And I'm like, oh boy.
Here we go.
I've been on appointments, client call. Actually had a client in New Jersey that came into the call and she was their HR director. She's like, "Oh my God, I just finished reading your book. I saw this, so I got it on
That's
Amazon. I read
great.
your book. I have it in my office. Can you sign it?" And I'm on a business call. I'm doing business. This is
Right.
business talk. This is not the entertainer talk. This is the business talk.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Can I have the deal?
If one will
Yeah.
help the other, why not?
They're a client today, an accounting firm. They're still a client. And
Good.
just interesting because, yeah, when you get, everything out there and they Google, you're like, "Oh my God, I got this, this, and this."
You're likable too. It like brings out your personality. I think really that's so critical, especially in staffing and where you were saying earlier how much it's changed and how some of these bad companies have given people like us a bad name.
Oh, yeah.
They're looking for that trust. They're looking for that
Mhm.
relationship. And you just have that type of personality and you can tell that right away it's genuine.
I like to build the partnerships, and like I said when we
Yeah.
were talking, I don't sugarcoat it, and I'm gonna tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Don't any reason. I mean, I've been successful. I don't
Right.
need to lie to you or garnish you or something to get your business or earn your trust. I've
Yeah.
been done it. It's fine, and I'm gonna tell you what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right, and that's kind of the relationship that I built with business prospects and
Right.
clientele because that you want the hard truth. You can go talk to Kelly or a Deco or somebody else or a salesperson for whatever company, and they're going to be, this Tiffany. Oh yeah, we can fill all your orders and we can do this.
Over promise. Yeah.
Say, "Look, I don't have any guarantees.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to start. Is the reality of this business. There's no guarantees in this business.
Not when your
You know,
product is a person.
not when you're part no, exactly. I'm not making widgets. I'm not, we're trading people here and bodies and seats and whatever.
Right.
We're not making widgets. There's no guarantee on this, and every person's different, and I always said, this is interesting. I actually wrote a treatment for I have to admit this, a sitcom. Maybe you and I are gonna have to trade stories.
Oh.
Wrote a story,
Yeah.
a treatment sitcom, and I wrote like the first 6 episodes, and it was, and you'll love this, it was about staffing company, and I took
That
thoughts
is
and
a
stuff
sitcom.
it that I
Sorry.
did from
Yes.
staff company years ago when I had West Staff in the front because we had multiple offices. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, and this, all the stories you could tell?" It's like, "Oh my God, this is crazy."
We
And I
s-
actually I tried to present it and stuff. I haven't had a bot yet. Maybe I have to you and I have to tidy it.
you got to dust that off.
But, you realize all the stuff that happens in this business because everybody's different. I had a person, I hate to say this and on the call and whatever in our discussion, but I had a person years ago that committed suicide at a major bank in Pittsburgh. He was having an affair with the HR director of all people, and he stayed late one night in the office, and security, heard the boom bang, and that was it. And
Oof.
then all this stuff got out because she was married, he was married, and
My
all this.
gosh.
And this was somebody that had worked for us, and you hear that, but then you hear stuff like, that's the happy, funny stuff that people
Yeah.
do and the silly stuff that has, everybody, like I said, everybody has a story. That's what always with writing and acting and stuff. Everybody has a story. Everybody can sing, dance, and you may not sound good, but you can still do it. And you got to enjoy life and do that. I mean, I've been through cancer for a year and a half for
My
liver cancer.
gosh.
I'm still here, still kicking.
Yeah.
And, it was good support mechanism and got everything treated and taken care of in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, you just got to enjoy life,
Yeah.
and do what makes you happy. If you want to
Yeah.
go out play baseball or want to be a pro singer or a pro baseball player or go out and be a professional singer or do stage, do it. Write a book. I tell everybody, I say, I'll tell you and everybody else, you know what? Take what you've learned in life and do yourself a favor.
Yeah.
It's a therapeutic thing. I'm not being a
Hmm.
psychoanalyst. You know what? Tell a story. I don't care if you make it up and it's fiction, tell a story. Everybody's got one in them,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and just do it yourself, even if you just are the only one that reads it. But it's always fun in that sense. That's
Right.
what I try and there's days, listen, there's days that you get upset and you get mad and you're like, oh my God, the world's collapsing and stuff, and you got to get over it. Things that I've been through, or you, or anybody else in this business or in business in general. We were doing, I mean, we were doing manufacturing. We were doing it in Puerto Rico
Mm.
for one of my companies. And this was what, 6 years ago, the hurricane hit and it wiped out our whole family. And I'd wake up in the morning and says, yeah, we just use 20,000 foot manufacturing. There's no, you know what, Tom, there's no plant. I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
you see things like this and you hear things like this, and you just got to get through it. You got to laugh it
Yeah.
off, brush it off, and keep going.
Yeah, that's so challenging for a lot of people, and I think it's what holds them back. There's,
Yeah,
confidence issues, insecurity, and I think your own self-limiting beliefs really is you don't think that you can do something. You don't think you can have the
yeah.
resources to do it. So, what advice do you have for people? Because I mean, it seems like you just see like, I like that. I'm gonna go check that out. And you just
Yeah, just
beeline.
yeah.
How do
My
you
thing,
overcome when you
you
don't have
gotta
that natural instinct? Go ahead.
you gotta be yourself. First of all, be yourself. Don't try to imagine doing over and above what you do. Be a realist and go. I say people, go after what you want to do.
Mm,
Plain and simple. Go after what you want to do. I did with the writing. And then I got into writing. I was like, I want to own a business. I'm like, it sounds like a cool thing. I want to own a business. And you get into it and you got to love what you do. That's why you stay in it.
mhm.
And don't let anybody ever tell you no and you can't do it. Plain and
Love
simple.
it. Love that,
That's the
yeah.
biggest thing. And I always say one thing. I said, listen, don't ask your people to do something you can't do yourself. You can't do it. You can't walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yeah.
Then you shouldn't be telling other people how to do it. What I always tell people is just go after what makes you happy.
Mm,
You're going to be successful one way or the other. And listen, we're all here for a short, limited time. If you
yeah.
live to be 110, you're lucky. But most people, it's a short, limited time. It's a flash in the pan in the reality of the world. Everything's going to be here after you're gone. What mark are you going to make on this life for yourself, for your children, for your grandchildren, for your legacy? Whether it's big or small, that's fine. I mean, people, listen, there are people who go live off the grid and they have a perfect life and they're happy.
Mhm.
They got 10 acres in Montana and they're sitting meditating, drinking coffee in the
Great.
morning, watching the elk run by. That's what you want to do in life. Go do it.
Yeah. One of the things that I had mentioned to you earlier was just looking at all of your success, but and I was watching a few clips here and
Success
there.
is in progress, but that's what you learn. Learn from your failures. You
So
never learn success.
you're almost making my point for me because my point is that you have this humility about you, and we always lived our philosophy and people share of the book Good to Great,
Yeah,
and you're being that level 5 leaders. That one little notch that makes the level 5 is that humility piece.
yeah.
Did you always have that? Did you always have that sense? Did you have to learn that? Tell me about that.
I think I always had it, but listen,
Mhm.
we grew up, we didn't have a lot of money. I worked multiple jobs and did acting and
Mhm.
sold screenplays and stuff to
Right.
get through college. I wanted to really go in the military and I couldn't do it. I had asthma and a heart murmur, so they don't let you in. You're done. You can't
Wow.
get in. I tried
Mm.
Army, Navy, and Air Force, and nobody will let me in. And you just gain that humility because there's wins and losses all along the way. And like last, 2 years ago, with the cancer and stuff, you kind of look at yourself in the mirror and say, wow, yeah, this could be it, you know and there
Right.
might not be anything else left. So what am I going to do about it? Well, you have to have that humility. And there's people, that, and I get it. I've seen it. There's very, posh personnel and personalities that they belong to the country club and they're driving their $300,000 car, living in a $2 million home, and they may not have any money left. And they just have an air about them. And you can't do that when it comes to
Right.
business or anything like that. You
Yeah.
just can't do that.
Yeah.
It's just be your own self.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you coach somebody who hasn't gotten there yet and it still works off of their ego and insecurities?
listen, everybody has insecurities when it comes to, working in business and
Hmm.
different things, no matter what it is, whatever industry it's in. The thing is you have to be able to focus. You have to be able to, and it's kind of cliche, but multitask and do what you have to do
Yeah.
because you're juggling so much. And as a small business owner, you're juggling all the parts. You're a CEO, cook, a washer, and trash guy.
Yeah.
Recruiter, phone person, front desk, whatever it may be. And you have to be able to multitask. And a lot of people they want to get into business, so they want to focus on things, and they're not prepared for it.
Hmm.
They're
Yeah.
not prepared for the trials. They always look at the success, but they don't realize what you got to do to get there
So
and
true.
get the earnings. You have to earn what you got.
I would always look at people that would want just the title, they
Yeah.
want to move up with the
Uh,
title. It's
Yeah.
like
Sure.
it actually gets a lot worse with the
Yeah.
title. Like you don't get
Uh,
that
Responsibility.
level and have all rainbows and,
Yeah.
marshmallows,
Rainbows and butterflies all across the.
butterflies.
When you get that bigger title, all the problems come to you
Right.
because all comes up the ladder.
Mhm.
And I had a call the other day with one of my salespeople, and we were presenting to a new client. And he's like, "Well, how do you want me to introduce you?" And I said, just Tom, and just introduce me. So I work with you. I'm a partner.
Yeah.
We're together, and this is what we do. I says, I'm not about the title. You don't have to, for this company, it's CEO or president or what. I don't care about that. Because they don't really care. I mean, does it carry weight and stuff in a boardroom or when you're talking, you're trying to make the calls? Yeah,
Right.
it does. But we're selling them on partnership. We're selling them on personality.
Mhm.
Because in staffing, you've been there, you've done that. In staffing, those partnerships and those business relations follow you.
They
You could
sure
go from
do.
one company to the next, and they follow you. So that's what you have to rely upon. So I tell my people, I says, "Nah, don't introduce me as CEO. I don't care." But there are people, and you see that in the corporate world. And I love the people, and you've probably faced a number of them over the years that like, oh, well, what's my title going to be? Well, I was a vice. I need to be senior vice president. If I take this role, can I get a different title? I'm like, oh my god. And you don't want to hear, and those are the
Yeah.
bad candidates. Oh
Yeah.
my god, you're at the title.
So you're reminding me so much of Dave and Ryan because they didn't even have their titles on business cards, emails,
I don't.
nothing. And I would love when an employee would come in and say, "Can I have my title on my signature?" I'm like, "Our founders don't even. So no, I'll pass." Like, you're going to take it down a notch. It doesn't matter. We're all working for the same goal, you know?
It's irrelevant when you come to the title. I mean, if you work your way up and you earn it, and of course that's the corporate mentality.
Yeah.
And people, when they're flipping jobs and going back and forth, and they take a lateral move, and they want something else, and they want, I need a bigger title. And the reason is because you have a lot of people that just want to polish their resume or fluff
Yeah.
their LinkedIn profile and say, I did
Yeah.
this, and this. I've had people that have worked here for a number of my entities, and those are the bad candidates. The first thing they ask is like, well, I need to be. I was a senior vice president, and I need to be.
Right.
You know, can I be division president or what? I'm like, we don't have titles.
Yeah.
What do you want me to call it? I says, we're all part of the same team here. As a business owner, you got to realize the buck stops with you. And that's when you get into the complaints and the problems and issues, everybody looks for the top dog and they look for that C-level title. I'm saying, hey, listen, anybody, sometimes as an owner, you want to avoid it.
You, you
You
do.
want to deal with it. I don't wake up every
Right.
Monday and have complaints.
Yeah.
Um, as a business owner, yeah, you like the accolades,
Hmm.
but as a personality, sometimes you want to be reserved. When it comes to business and you talk to business owners, I always tell people be prepared. Be prepared to what you're getting into, and you have to understand what
Hmm.
you're doing. It's not you're going to create some widget and you're going to go open a plant and be, the next Elon Musk and, the next Tesla, and just like restaurants, everybody want, oh, it's so cool when you can give away food and sit and have drinks and talk with people and
It's not
whatever.
cheers.
Like, no, you go home smelling like onions, and every complaint comes to you, and every problem you work long hours, and it's not fun. It gets to a point,
Yeah.
it's not fun,
Yeah.
and that's what you got to deal with in a lot of respects.
So, what do you find fun about staffing? Why have you stayed in it so long?
Well, there's a lot more things that you don't like about staffing than you do like, but it's
That'll be
fun because
question number
every,
2.
everything's different. Every day is different.
Mhm.
Like we were talking, every personality is different. Every
Yeah.
candidate's different. Every situation is different in that respect. Every client has a different need. And like we were joking, it's like, hey, you could write a sitcom out of this stuff.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's times that it's like, oh my God, I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm,
And then you get up the next morning, you go through it again,
yeah.
and you go through it, and it's perseverance and stuff. And is it been lucrative? Yes, absolutely.
Mm, hmm.
If you do it right. There's plenty of companies in this business that do it wrong.
Yeah.
You know, they give you the sales spiel about what they can do and they can't do it. And that amounts to the failure. And that's like when we first started our conversation, where what it comes up with a lot of the companies that fail. You know, they're not prepared for it and they're overselling what they can do. Okay.
And
It
what
is
is
what
it?
it is.
It's like 90% of startups fail before 3 years or something.
90% of startups will fail in the first 3 years.
What do you tell, because you work with startups?
The interesting thing when I hear you say that stat is
Yeah.
actually like 96% of restaurants fail in the first
I
2 years.
believe that. Yeah.
Like I said, it sounds like a fun business, but it's not.
When you're consulting and coaching new business owners,
Mhm.
what are some of the things that you're trying to guide them on so they don't become part of that 90%? What do you see people doing that is making them fail?
A lot of people give up before they
Mm,
success. That success, you see these little, I guess, images where the guy's digging for, the mine shaft looking for
right.
diamonds, and you would have gone 2 feet deeper, you would have found the whole stash,
Yeah.
or they hit a wall.
Hmm.
And they get frustrated and so forth. And listen, it's a good business to be in, and any business as an entrepreneur, you're going to hit that wall and you're going to
Yeah.
bang your head against the pavement asking why you did this. And you're going to make some great connections. You're going to have some enemies along the way. You're going to have
Hmm.
competition along the way. And look, I'm all about fair competition. That's why, with the staffing, with the consulting, I consult other staffing firms. I'm like, I'll consult with you. That's
Yeah.
fine. Because you don't want anybody to really fail
Yeah.
in any business. But like you said, it's that failure rate's 90% in 3 years,
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
of business. And you see that all the time, and it's across the board. Intelligent staffing's 25 years now. I never thought I'd have quarter century business
Yeah.
at that point. But it's fun. But I tell you what, there's a lot of bad days to go with it. There's a lot of days I question myself and whatever, like, why am I doing this? And oh my God, and the thing is, one of my things as a personality, I'm always afraid of the failure.
Okay.
You're always afraid of the failure. So that's what keeps you like, okay, I got to do this and this and this, or I'm going to fail tomorrow. Or it was a bad day, and oh my God, I should sell the business, close the business. I want to close the doors. Fans, family, and everybody else, loved ones, they all hear the same thing. And it's like, why am I doing this? But you say, oh, the benefits and the end return is better than what you would have on this side.
Mm, yeah.
And it's a good thing.
What's one of the biggest failures that was almost the last straw for you?
Wow, yeah, that's a good question. Like within a restaurant business, it was like, we
Mm,
had infighting between the ownership,
ooh,
tore it apart. So you have those kinds of
yeah.
detriment that take place in staffing. I mean, even with this company here, with Intelligent, you have somebody on board for a number of years, and you realize over and over that was the wrong person, and you should get rid
Mm,
of them. And it's just they take advantage of it, and you got to cut ties. And it's just like customers. Sometimes you have to know for customers to say know when to say no. Okay,
yeah.
the
That's a
customer.
tough one.
That's always a tough one because your lifestyle is built on your business. You want to make money, but I'm not going to do it for free.
Right.
You always have clients that are trying to renegotiate this and that. And it's like, yeah, you're renegotiating costs on this. Meanwhile, my costs have gone up just like your costs have gone up. So costs have gone
Yeah.
up, but you want to do it cheaper for you, but
Right.
you've raised and you hear it all the time. It's the monotony of what happens in business.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's just, there's a lot of different stories of what was good and what was bad.
Yeah. Just, I want to slide into on the personal note for a second because, I was stalking you a little bit
No,
prior to this.
we
And
found the oh yeah.
my favorite that came up was, I think congratulations are in order. Did you just get married?
Yes, just got married.
Congratulations to
You,
let me
my
tell
lovely
you, lovely. She's gorgeous.
yes, Rana, my lovely wife.
She is gorgeous. And what
She
a
is
great
gorgeous.
couple you guys are. That's one of the
We're not
places
too bad. Come
I was gonna
on.
say, well, with the cowboy hat, yeah. Having success in relationships, I think, is
Yes.
something that entrepreneurs, founders, or people who are really focused on business
Yeah.
sometimes don't have.
Oh yeah, that's been questionable over the years. Yep, absolutely.
Sometimes it just takes a little while, right? Yeah. Well, good. Good for
We're
you.
waking up. And business is a different breed, and God love her, she puts up with me. So there we are.
I want to be mindful of our time. I feel like I could just chat with you for another couple of hours. I won't do that. If anything, I will beg you to come back on or take you out for coffee, you and your wife, because we're so local.
Yeah, yeah.
But this
She'll come
is,
along. We're going out, so
I would love
we'll
it.
both have cowboy hats for you. How's that?
Yes, I have
There
one
you
too.
then
Go
it's a
out.
cowboy. There you go.
Yes.
It's a cowboy luncheon. So there you go.
That's great. Well, I have really enjoyed our time together, and it was
Thank you.
just such a pleasure meeting you. Impressed feels like the wrong word just because it feels like I'm
Yeah.
impressed by you. Like, how could I be impressed by you? No, that's not
Jeez.
the feeling, but it's it's exceeding my expectations. I knew this was going to be a great conversation, but now to hear that you're also a cancer survivor and just everything that you've accomplished, it's incredible. I love your positivity. This is the reason I didn't want to stick to script, because I don't know if we would have talked about some of this fun stuff. And
Wow. Hey, doing improv, I'm good to go off script, so we're good.
thank goodness it just wasn't in the cards for me. And that's why the show's called Out of Line. That's who we really are, right? We're not these
Sure.
stuffy in line type of people. You certainly haven't been. So that's the side I wanted to see. And you certainly showed that. So I appreciate it.
Tell you what, you splice all that together, we'll take a look at it. So
Don't tempt me.